Hello, beautiful people. I am back here again with another word from God. I've been continuing to walk out this journey. God is still waking me up at 4:30 in the morning, and I just looked at some of the dates. It's been about 3 months, or a little more than 3 months, almost 4 months, about 16 weeks, because I am on week 15 of the devotional that I'm using. And it's been a really tough week for us, probably by my estimation, one of the toughest weeks we've had in our life. It's up there. Like, I don't think it gets rougher than this, and I just want to send so much love to my brother and sister-in-law who have really been gracious under fire. And I mean, just in the face of adversity, just showing me the tenaciousness and the love that pushes us past, those limits, those things that we think we can't do. And it's been a wonder to watch. It's been amazing. But I thought it fit to come on here and give you this word because what I didn't know at the time, that God had me in training, right? We always had that boot camp before we actually enter into the real battle. And I wasn't aware that, this was set up for the drafting. I didn't know the draft was coming. A draft is a time of war when we are sent into battle and we are not given a choice, So I wanted to just rest that on this idea that God is setting our feet on solid ground. He is not sending us into battles without the tools that we need to survive them, and to come out on the other side. So and that's where I want to start, because after I stopped recording on the last video, the Bible story continued on Moses, and it brought me to the people at that point where Moses had died and the parents had perished in the wilderness as God had said they would. And it was now time to go into this promised land. God had brought these children full circle. They were adults now. They had seen God move. And it was now their time to embrace what God had for them. And as promised, Caleb and Joshua were with them. But what I didn't know, again, reading the Bible for myself, I did not know that God was going to part this Red Sea. And now this is only to kind of close up the last study. This is not what I'm going to be speaking about today. And today I'm actually going to read from the Bible because I don't want to mismatch the facts, and they're kind of very precise. And I'm not even quite sure the major points that God is going to have me make. I think those are going to just unfold naturally. I do have an idea. I know the premise of the overarching story of what I think I want you to walk away with today, but this part was, they came to the River Jordan, yet another impassable body of water. And again, God says he parted this water and that it stood like a wall, like literally like a wall, holding all of creation back. And again, God's people walked on dry land. The same way they came into the wilderness was the same way they exited the wilderness. So if you're in the wilderness right now and you can't see a way through, just know that God is able to create a way through. It's not going to be natural, like it's not going to be, I think again we talked about how we judge all these things in this natural life, and we think that we know exactly how God's going to move, and we think like we messed up, so why would God part the sea? The last time he parted the sea, we were disobedient, so why would he bless us again? But I'm here to tell you that even though you're coming out of a time of disobedience, even though you're coming out of a time where you did not follow what God said, here he brings you full circle. And the way that you went into that thing, God used a similar miracle to bring you out, right? We said last week that God doesn't always act the same way. God doesn't do things the way we think we're going to do them. But we can rest assured that God always has an exit strategy for us. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, whatever war that we are drafted into, and that's going to be kind of our message. Like this Bible study that I've been doing really brought my heart close to God, because when things like this happen, you are challenged to believe in a good God. You are challenged to try to understand how these type of things happen in a world where we have a good God. I had a friend of mine who I love dearly, and and she's an atheist, and I'm not, again, I have no judgment for her. It's the faith in that nothing exists. but it is imperative to me that I maintain this status that God is good. It is a hard one to say out loud when you're in this situation. And I definitely follow the tenets of the Bible that says to mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice. And I do not use scripture to bypass grief. Matter of fact, it's some of my most silent times when presence is required and nothing else. But I'm going to read directly from the Bible today because I feel like this is a message that's important for us, because one of the things I walked away with, and I'm not trying to make jokes, but it does sound funny that I walked away from that whole situation when those enemies ran in, is chariots don't float. Let me say it again. Chariots don't float. So I don't care what you're going through and how big the thing is that's chasing you either in or out, and what you perceive the situation to be or how big it is. At the end of the day, they couldn't contend with God because chariots don't float. Okay? So I want to leave you with that because I thought that was powerful. I know some of these things are from the Lord because I can't come up with this. I can't come up with chariots don't float. Like I've never lived in a time period in history when there were chariots, but I understood that. I did, and I hope you understand that. Make sure that the things that you're relying on can hold up to God's standards, okay? For some of you, it might be a Lexus, it might be a Tesla, it might be whatever. Teslas don't float. Lexus don't float, Mercedes don't float. Say whatever you want to say. But at the end of the day, your trust better be in God and not in things. So, but that's the kind of the wrap up of the last story. So today we're going to go to Gideon. Gideon was in a situation similar to Moses where he had to face an enemy and he didn't really have a solution. And you don't even qualify to be an enemy unless you're a real problem, unless you present a real challenge. Okay, so sometimes you have people who annoy you, but they don't qualify as enemies because they don't present any challenges to stop you from moving forward. They don't present any challenges to minimize your success. So they're not worthy opponents, they're not enemies. An enemy is someone who presents a challenge, who can actually stop your destiny, right? Who has the potential to stop your destiny. You know, and I said this earlier to a friend, like, you have to know that God has established you in some things because you will face chariots. You will face things that will make you think that this is too big for me, or that this ocean that's sitting in front of me, I don't have a paddle or a boat. I don't have, the weather's not cooperating. There's nothing in here that tells me that I'm moving forward. And there he goes. He said he held back the rivers as a wall, held back all of creation. But let's get into today's study. So I'm going to read it to you as it is, mid-story, hopefully enough of the story that it makes sense. So this is Gideon 7. Well, not Gideon 7 because Gideon's not a book in the Bible. This is Judges 7 talking about Gideon. So don't pay me no mind. Okay. Sorry, call came in, but I will call that person back. Okay, so it says Gideon defeats the Midianites. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all of his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley Neat, the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." I hope I pronounced that right. So 22,000 men left with 10,000 remains. So what is God saying? Like, no, bro. You're not going to come in here with a big army and they're going to say, of course they win. They were outnumbered. We are going to establish right now that God is giving us the victory. So it says that out of those 32,000 men, he sent home 22,000 men and he was left with 10,000. But God was not done minimizing or how can I say this? He was not done making Gideon's circle smaller. Because how many of us know that sometimes the less friends you have is the better. Sometimes the less is more when it comes to relationships, right? So here we go. So he sends these people home. They're doing what they're doing. They said, you're not going to brag that you did this in your own strength. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. So Gideon took the men down to the water, and there the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. 300 of them drank from the cup's hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord says to Gideon, with these 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give you the Midianites into your hands. Now, this is not the King James version, okay? This is the version that I came up with. And I'm sorry, I said I mess with this hair. Don't pay me no mind. This was not, I lost my track of thought, but I'm not going to re-record this because I get tired of myself. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this is not the King James version. This is Naisha's version. I think those men who lapped up the water, opposed to those ones that got down low, first of all, you already got your guard down, and we could be attacked at any time. But those guys who were like, I'm going to drink real quick, but I'm going to stay on my feet. God knew to surround him with people who were paying attention. Even though they had basic needs, they were still paying attention. They did not let their needs surpass their purpose, right? Sometimes we settle for what we need, and then it destroys our purpose, right? And I say that, and I hear myself out loud like, I need a lot of things, but I do not want to destroy my purpose because of those things. Now, God in his mercy, we live on the earth, and he grants us abundance while we're here. He grants us the desires of our heart. The Bible says he even, makes a way where there's no way for us. So I know the things that I have asked God for, that he is able to give me those things. But I also know that I need to make sure that I am aligning myself with people who, even though they need drink, they are still paying attention. They're still paying attention to the dangers that surround them, right? So one of the notes I wrote this morning were that God is going to do more with less, and that those who came with you to the battle are not the ones that may win the battle with you. And it's funny because I was talking to my person, and I said, something? I never believed in this culture of divorce. I never believed in this, but because I always felt like we build together, we build this as, we in our 20s and we're building, we raise the babies, we do all this. So I felt like you should get the prize. If you win the race, we should get the prize. So I was sold on this. I was not budging. Like, I felt that loyalty, like, that ride or die, like till the wheels fall off. And then I realized in Gideon that those who came to the battle with you may not be the ones who win with you. And it is not a pleasant idea. It is not the way I picture life, right? But I'm here to tell you right now, like, it says it clearly. I wrote it down this morning. It said, God can do more with less in your life. He is making your circle smaller, but the people who are going to be left behind in your life, they're going to be the ones that can take the battle for you, okay? It says, these people that you brought because you thought they were strong, because you thought they were going to be the ones to help you win this victory, it's going to be a lot less than you think. It says, they may not be the ones to go to the top with you. They may not be the ones to enjoy success with you. They may not be the ones to go into battle with you, because God has decided who will be going with you. And it says you have to be okay with that. Even if he reduces your numbers down to like 300, he had 32,000 men with him. That's a pruning. Like, I remember when I had to leave some friends alone because they was not part of one, God's purpose for my life. And they would get me into things like, they want to go to the club, and I'm okay. Listen, I love a good party, period. But I know, and I will give you a perfect example. I stopped hanging around with people who thought they could talk to my kids any kind of way. Like, I had to leave them alone. And guess what? I enjoyed their company. We had a good time. But you were not going to speak into my children's life that way. And some of them, I announced that the friendship was over. And some of them, I just started sending to voicemail long enough till they just stopped calling. And that's not really cowardice, because somebody said, well, you could have just talked to me. No, no. Stop feeling like you owe people explanations out here. Stop feeling like you got to explain it away. Stop feeling like I'm going to sit you down and we're going to figure this out. If you do not understand that I am a package deal, that I come with children and grown children, because people are like, your children grown. Like, one friend told me I should take the paintings down off the wall because that was from kindergarten. Listen, my house looks like a museum. I have framed my baby's pictures. I have Karina's 5th grade picture. She's 37 years old, okay? That's how I feel love. That's my expression of love in my family. That's what brings me joy. It's wild, but I love my kids above and beyond anything. And I know that most of you feel that way too. So this is not some like beautiful character trait I have. But I've had to cut, my point, bring it back full circles, I've had to cut people off who did not respect that boundary that I set. Now, I recently talked to someone that I had to say, now your babies can't be out here, disrespecting, being terrible. Like, my friends never came over to my house where my kids were disrespectful to them or where my kids made them feel some kind of way. It would be kid things. Like, they would go in the refrigerator and be like, oh, did you ask your mother for that? Bro, my kids have a free pass in this house. They don't have to ask me to go to the refrigerator. They don't have to ask me to do anything. We already established that this is our home and we all are free to enjoy this space. But I digressed. I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about that. So I say that to say that everybody who started this with you, everybody who had a hammer in the beginning, Bob the Builder, Lego man, doesn't mean that they're going, and I'm sorry, I get corny sometimes, but it doesn't mean that they're going to finish with you. And it is not an exciting idea because, it's like you work for a company. You want to get your rewards. You want to get your accolades. You want to get your raises. You want to be acknowledged. But how many times has a boss sat you down and says, we've decided to go in a different direction? You need to sit some of your friends down and tell them that you've decided to go in a different direction. And you need to be okay with that, because I've never seen a boss cry when he needed to tell me it was time for me to go. And let me just brag, I have not really ever been fired, and that's pride speaking. But I say that to say that when these companies have to sit you down, send you to a different department, take away a project that you enjoy, or they sit you down and say, we decided to go in a different direction. Well, you need to do that in your personal life. You need to tell some people that you have decided to go in a different direction, and you need to not have any guilt about that. Like, anyone in my life at any time can tell me they've decided to go in a different direction, and I'm okay with that. I used to tell my daycare parents when they said, oh, we think we're going to go to another daycare, I would say, would you like me to give you a reference, or would you like me, I'm giving them a reference, to tell them little Johnny doesn't like this in his cereal, or little Johnny, you know why? Because if you have decided that you're going to move your child from my center at that time, that means that you've already deliberated with the judge and the jury. You've already been thinking about this for weeks. You've already decided what you do and don't like. So why am I going to ask you to stay? And let me tell you, any child that moved on from daycare, their space was filled quickly. I did very well. I loved the kids who were there. They loved me. We used to joke that some of the kids were like Team Edward and Team Jacob, because we had people who work with us and they would choose, that would be their favorite person. It was a joy. So again, this is turning into a very long story, but you need to have those conversations and tell people in your life, I've decided to go in a different direction, and be okay with that. Okay, so back to the story. Where were we? Gideon is now, he's got his 300 men. He started out with 32,000. He reduced it to 300 because God was very clear. So the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that are left, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and the trumpets of the others. Now the camp of the Midian lay below him in the valley. During the night, the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down there against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp. If you are afraid to make those major decisions, like, tell God, I hear what you're saying, but I am terrified to do this. He's going to honor that, okay? And listen, and this has been from my 15, 16 weeks of Bible study that I've had all these convictions, because I didn't have this going on a couple months ago. I wasn't in deep. And it's great because, like I said, this has been a terrible week. And if I had not been digging into this word, like tearing it apart, like you fillet a fish, like taking out all the bones, I would not have had the fortitude to go through what I'm going through this week. But let's get back into the story. So now the camp of Midian lay below in the valley, and during the night the Lord said to Gideon, go up and go against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So Purah and his servant went down to the outskirts of the camp, and the Midianites and the Amalekites all of the other eastern peoples had settled into the valley, thick as locusts. It said the people were thick as locusts. Locusts don't leave any space, so this had to be thousands of men. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand of the seashore. And Gideon arrived just as the man was telling a friend about a dream. I had a dream, man. That's me ad-libbing. That's not in here. I had a dream. He was saying a round loaf of barley or bread came tumbling into the midnight camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, this can be nothing more than the Gideons, the son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, that they were already afraid, even though they had no clue that they were, only 300 men, they were already prepared to run, okay? So when Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, get up, the Lord has given the Midianites camp into your hands. Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in his hands, and all of them with torches inside. Watch me, he told them, follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all of who are with me blow our trumpets from there all around the camp, blow your shout for the Lord, for the Lord and for Gideon. Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp and beginning at the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard, they blew their trumpets and broke the jars and were in their hands. The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted with a great might for the Lord God Gideon, while each man held his position around the camp, and the Midianites ran crying out as they fled. And when 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with weapons, and the army fled to the Beth Shittite towards Zariah. So listen to me, people. Not only were they already ripe for the picking, because God had already given them dreams that these people are coming and they're going to take your land. They were outnumbered. Just because you're outnumbered doesn't mean you're not going to win, okay? They were outnumbered. And then here, when we looked closely, they were causing distractions with music. How do I interpret that? I interpret that as worship. Some days I need to just worship God. I need to just set aside my questions. I need to set aside my anxiety. I need just to worship him, because worship is such a distraction to the enemy. I mean, you've got trumpets, you got jars crashing. I mean, could you imagine? You couldn't even get your bearings. Like you would, if you were GPS, you would be rerouting your brain, rerouting, because you got all of this. You got men charging at you. You have these glasses breaking. You have this music going. Well, worship is very similar. Worship just stirs the camp of the enemy, and they don't know what to do with that. and we're talking about spiritually, they don't know what to do with that. So sometimes when you all out of words to pray and you don't have direction for your life, just stop and worship God. Just, put on some good worship music and worship him. I know I do that. I know when, especially recently, that, I don't always recognize what to do. Or I don't always know what to do next. So I just stay still and be like, God, I need you to talk to me, especially when things are moving in my life that are not traditionally how God would move. I have to be like, okay, God, number one, I don't want to dishonor you in how I move. Number two, I know that you have been my provider, right? Don't bite the hand that feeds you. I'm just saying. So you have been my provider, and I desire God in my life, not because of all he's done for me, but we built this relationship over time, and it's been, unlike some earthly relationships, it's been fail proof. God has been like Gideon. He has given me sign after sign after sign. A couple of weeks ago, God just moved with the situation with my mom. God is taking care of us right now in our greatest time of need. I'm sorry if this message is a little long, but I got to get through these points. So I just want to give God the glory. So when we think about going into battle, okay, and I think we're good here. I just have some questions that were asked to me. Would you trust God with these type of instructions? Would you trust God to sit your friends down that are no longer serving your purpose? And I'm not saying you're using them, but your purpose in life, what God has called you to do, who are not aligning with those things. Have you sat down and said, I decided to go in a different direction? That's a hard conversation. In fact, bosses kind of pawn it off on each other. No, you talk to them. I really don't want to do this. Then you got that person who's like, goes in. We have a friend like that. Like, she's not afraid to do hard things. Like, she built different. My gift is this. I can break down a story and bring out all the gems. And I know people have referred to me like as a wordsmith, because I can literally take stories apart. But that's my gift. But my friend's gift, she's administrative. She goes in, she gets the job done, she cleans up house. And listen, know your gifts, but also understand your team's gifts, right? And when I say a team, I'm not talking about on your job. Who are you surrounding yourself? Who in your small circle has the gifts that you need to complete the mission, right? Like my friend goes in, she says what she has to say, she cleans up. When she leaves, it is well understood what's going to happen next. That's amazing. Sorry, another phone call. It will happen after this video. So there's that. And it says, has there been a time in your life when you trusted God and succeeded against all odds? I have picked up one year, we got this cockamamie idea that we were going to move to be with grandkids. We lived in Maryland. Maryland was just fine. Maryland's a state for grown-ups. I say it all the time. But I had grandbabies. I was homesick. And I picked up my kids. It's about maybe going on 7 years now, and moved back to Yonkers. Just went back. Well, I got there, and it was not the cakewalk I thought it was going to be. And I mean, less than 9 months, we were back here. But that's the times that God delivered me from my own choices, brought me back. I'm not saying that Yonkers was a problem. I'm not saying I'm never going to move there again. I'm just saying it wasn't that time. It wasn't good. In Judges 7:9-11, God instructs Gideon to go to his enemy's camp. Why and what were the results? God asks him to go down and listen. Sometimes you need to be quiet and just pay attention to how things are moving. Because sometimes the answer, and I tell this to my kids in school all the time, the answer is almost 100% in the question, right? Like, are they afraid? Yes, they were. Yes, they were afraid. Sometimes you need to collect data. Listen closely to what people are saying. People tell on themselves. Okay, if you say to someone, I don't really like, let's say, orange juice, and they keep serving you orange juice, that's data. And and I hate this culture of data, but the data doesn't lie. The data doesn't lie. Now, I think sometimes we need to bring some common sense. We need to bring some EQ, not just IQ. Like, where's your emotional intelligence? Our kids, they're lacking a lot of emotional intelligence right now. Let that soak in, because we're teaching them. So I'll end with this. The verse of the week for me was, the Lord told Gideon, with these 300 men I will rescue and give you victory over the Midianites. Send all the others home. So Gideon collected the provisions and the rams, the horns, and the other warriors and sent them home. But he kept 300 men with him. The Midianite camp was in the valley just below Gideon. And that night the Lord said, get up, go down in the Midianite camp, and I have given you victory over them. I'm here to tell you, get up, walk in this mission that God has given you. He has promised you the victory, but you're going to have to cut down your circle and surround yourself with the people who can help you accomplish this mission. And that could be whatever, whether it's raising your children, whether it's your job, whether it's, a health mission. Listen, it's a known fact that people with breast cancer and different cancers, that it's not that it's mind over matter, because we know, we have seen the best of people not survive some of these diseases, but it's a known fact that people respond better to treatment when they are surrounded by positive people who believe for their healing, not just Christians. I'm talking about people who speak life. There's many documentaries on Netflix right now on people who spoke healing to their body. These are not even Christian people who just spoke. This man said he pictured nanobots fixing his organs. They told him his spinal cord had been severed. And he said he pictured himself walking and pictured nanobots fixing his spine. And over time, that man is walking today. He had to change his perspective. He had to change his thoughts. And listen, I have to take captive my thoughts, because my mind will take me 100 different directions. He had to change the people who he surrounded himself by. So last week, we recognized that God takes issue with us when we are not believing him. This week, we need to take issue when people are not believing in us. Okay? When people are not going to be with us for the tail end of this victory. And I'm sure those men left disappointed. Who are you going to sit down this week and tell them, I've decided to go in a different direction? Who are you going to sit down this week and say, I think you are going to help me get over this finish line. I think you are going to be the one that helps me finish this mission. I was having a conversation with a friend. I tell you, I talk to so many people. But when I say something meaningful to them, I'm really saying it to myself. Like, I always hear myself. This is always for me first. And I said something to the fact that I'm going to unmess my life. I'm going to unmess my life up. And not that my life is a mess, because I have accomplished some great feats. You guys know, you watched me walk the stage. I got my master's degree. But there's things in my life that everybody's life stands for improvement. And right now I said, I was so afraid to look at my numbers for retirement. I went into my teacher's retirement. I opened it up. And I had a realistic view of what retirement would look like for me at 62 and 65. I wasn't elated, folks. I got to tell you, I wasn't excited. It did not make me leap for joy. But I know that I'm not going to be in poverty for retirement. And there's my cousin cleared that up. He's like, there's many years between then and now, so you have time to pivot. And I have every intention of pivoting. And then I opened up my student loans, and I had a look. I did the calculation. You got to know your numbers. Even if they're scary, you got to know your numbers. And I have avoided my numbers for years to my detriment, okay? So I opened up my student loans. If right now I'm in this, I'm hidden in the Lord, okay? I'm in the SAVE program that you guys have been hearing on the news for at least 2 years now, and it's been virtually untouchable. It's crazy, because I was one of the few people who were locked into this SAVE program. And it's wild. It's the court cases. It's been wild. But I said, okay, as all good things come to an end, let's take a look at these numbers. So I went into student loans, and if anybody ever needs help with that, like I'm really beginning to see myself as leaning into this administrative person. I'm really beginning to think that, because it's solving issues for me, so I know it can solve issues for other people. So they have a loan calculator who can tell you what your payment would be based on the different programs. So I looked and I'm like, okay, a little ouch there. Like the lowest payment was like $500 a month, but I mean, it paid for college. We're not going to talk about that. Maybe the Lord would bring another word about college and loans and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why I'm not sure I'm going back for my PhD, because, like I said, let's hit pause on that. But I looked at my numbers, and that's going to be hard, you know. I like to joke that I live on a cruise ship. We moved here when the kids were starting high school. It was good high school here. It was a great community. It was almost like, again, I mean, in a cruise ship, you don't have to go out for anything. My kids, they were in the neighborhood. The neighbors got to know us. It was fantastic. That season might be coming to an end. And listen, I joke all the time. It's not a nice joke, but I'm like, I'm gonna have to throw a grenade at this. And what does that mean? A hard stop. A hard stop, because, and if you don't do it, it happens to you. You either decide how it happens, or it just happens to you. People say if you're not making plans for your life, someone else is planning your life. So that is relatively in the near future. But it's my numbers, people. You know, I was raised by hippies. My mom is beautiful. My father's beautiful. But they were hippies. They used to tell me, "Are you coming home tonight?" Mom, am I coming home tonight? Like, aren't you supposed to like tell me when I'm supposed to be home? I was raised by true blue 100% hippies. My mom used to bake me a cake when I broke up with a boyfriend and was like, "This is delicious. Take your mind off things." And 200 pounds later, here we are, you know? So I had to dig deep. My scale, let's talk about that. I had to look at those numbers. I remember stepping on the scale and being like, "Girl, is this what we doing now? Is this what we doing now?" But, and I still got to step on that scale. And that scale still be trying to get in my face. I'd be like, "No, we're not doing this." And speaking life, I remember that guy in those nanobots. I see those nanobots eating this body fat. I will get it done. And listen, people, I've had 6 children. I'm going to be double nickels. I'm not looking to look like Barbie and Ken. We're not going to be out here like Barbie and Ken. I want to be alive. I want to breathe when I walk up a flight of steps. I want to be able to pick up my grandchildren. I want to be able to wrestle with them. You know, I just want to be able to interact with this life that God's given me. I want to be able to interact in a way that brings me joy, in a way that brings other people joy. I don't want people to have to take care of me. I don't want my kids to have to decide, like, what nursing home I'm going to go to. I don't want that. You decide that today. This is a lot, right? This is a lot from spending time with God. You know, and there's other personal things that He's shown me that have brought me to tears. That this Bible story time is not for that. And that's, I think, what I'm going to start calling this Bible story time, you know? But friends, I think I've taken up a lot of your time this week, and thank you for entertaining me. I hope that you walk away with something. I hope you sit down and have those hard conversations. I hope you fact check those numbers. Can you retire? Because I know a lot of you on here, we're the same age. And listen, a lot of you did fantastic. And a lot of you are the ones telling me, "Naisha, you need to look at your numbers." Cousin Skip. My other cousin Wanda was funny. She was like, "Listen, if this was high school, you'd be ready for college. And retirement is like college. You got to plan for it. You can't just walk into college, and you can't just walk into retirement." So cousin Wanda, if you think I wasn't listening, I heard you. Cousin Skip, I heard you, you know. So, and again, you know, the joy of the Lord is our strength. This has been a horrible week. It's been terrible. You know, but I know that God is girding me up. I know that God is calling me. He's calling me to the hurting. He's calling me to help people. I pray that in all of my wisdom, I get understanding. I pray that I don't get distracted. You know, that happens. It makes me want to cry. I won't cry. Makes me want to cry. But I also know that there's been exceptions to the rules in the Bible, because people are people. You know, there's been exceptions. There's so many exceptions. He's a good God. That's still my testimony. It can be your testimony. He's a good God. Thank you, folks. I love you. You have given me 40 minutes of your time. And I pray that every minute was worth it. Have a wonderful week. Pray for our family. We're going into the dark part of, it's all dark, but it seems to be darker as we get closer to the day of, spending time with our family, doing what we have to do. So pray for us. Pray for us. And if you've seen our GoFundMe, please continue to share it. We are definitely suffering from some sticker shock. Like, it's another thing you're going to have to think about, like, how you leaving this place. I don't want my kids to have to do that. I don't know what to say. It's definitely a tender time. There's something called 5 Wishes. Miss Washington introduced me to that. She's my friend. I love her. She's retiring this year. Shout out to you, Miss Washington. And it's very important. I hope that wasn't. I hope that's common knowledge. Else I'm gonna get a phone call. And it's not gonna be pretty. But I think that's common knowledge. It's a whole process, so it has to be common knowledge. But it's called the 5 Wishes, and you can write them down. Directives for what you want to see happen to you when you get to that point. My kids know. I want a Viking funeral. I say it all the time. I can't have a Viking funeral because they're not allowed in this country. But guess what? They know what I want. We've had that conversation. I think we're good. Good night, folks. I might be on here in another couple days. I might be back in another couple weeks. I don't know. This is where God is moving right now in my life. This is the season for it. And I just want to say God bless you and enjoy the rest of your week. Like I said, keep us in prayer. Share that GoFundMe. It is very important. We are not where we need to be right now, but we are getting there because of you. I love you. Have a good night. Bye now.